appropriate for me to talk about the conflict with the forum, or just jump in?
We're going to lose our attorney in a little bit.
Or we might be done by the time his number comes around. I'd say there's a good chance we might be.
All righty. It's 6:30. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Clark County Board of Education. This is our regular meeting, October 23rd, 2018. And it's my pleasure to have everybody here in the room and come out to our meeting. I know there's a conflict tonight with the forum, and we were kind of boxed in on Kentucky law requires us to have a regular meeting. Our policy doesn't allow the chair to move a regular meeting, so we're having a regular meeting tonight. But those of you who want to go to the forum, it will be on the web. It'll be rebroadcast, and I think the Winchester Sun has it on their Facebook page, so you can not miss that. And as I like to say, do everything. So again, I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. All righty. If you all would join me by rising, we'll have a moment of silence, please. And if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, the first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. And that may provoke some thoughts as opposed to just a regular passing of that. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd like to throw this out. I'd like to see if we can try to move items number 2, 5, and 6, 7 through 12, and 17 through 21.
7 through 12.
17, 18, 19, 20, and 21.
Where do you want to move those to? I'm not sure I understand, sir.
I'd like to propose that the board have a special meeting on October 25th at 6:30 p.m. to discuss those items.
Okay. If we could, I think item 2, all of us were at the 3 of those meetings. So I would suggest potentially we could attempt to hit 2 of the 3 of those. Again, we're in the discussion stage of it. You said to move 5 and 6. That sounds very reasonable. On 7 and 8, I think that's something that might be useful for the public to hear. And I know there's been representatives of the Community Foundation that are here tonight.
Right.
To talk about that.
I think that would be helpful if we had a full board to have that discussion.
I don't know if they could come back.
Remember, there was a meeting next Tuesday also, some items, that's an area for student achievement, but there's some items that could be placed on that agenda as well. If you can't get people to come back to.
Okay. I think some of those items we could attempt to tackle tonight. What are your thoughts, Mr. Peridot?
Well, I would like to look at some. I know it's very difficult if you get outvoted 2-1 and you don't have a full board on some of the things, but we do have people here tonight that are prepared to present some things. I hate to just blanket say, let's not do these things and put it on another meeting. I know the 25th is probably not going to work well for me. I don't know about moving it to next week to the student achievement meeting and doing something different for the 5th. I don't know. I mean, there's important things on here that I would hate for people to get voted down if there were other people that would wish they would go, but at the same time, we do have people here that are prepared to present for those things as well.
Do you think we should just go through the agenda and table items individually?
I would much rather do it that way than I would, and I know that defeats some of the purpose of some of the things we're trying to accomplish, but I think to be fair about it, I think we'd almost have to. That's just my thought.
Okay.
Dr. Kudak, what's your availability next Tuesday for an extended meeting?
It's not,
Okay. All righty.
but I'm in the minority, so I think everybody else can attend next week, so.
Okay. Well, then I think from a practical standpoint, what we're talking about doing is we'll just potentially just jump into the agenda, and as we get to an item, say, all right, is this something we think we can address tonight? And if the three of us think it is, we'll tie into it, and if not, we can't. Certainly, if one person dissents, then we really, if I'm understanding the way we would handle this, if we get to each individual item, let's say we get to, item number 6, and we say, shall we table this? Can we then table it at that particular time on an individual vote, or what's the best way to handle that?
I just make a motion to table, so Gordy can make a motion to table, as long as it's seconded and voted on. But that motion would have to be unanimous, so.
All right, and if it's not unanimous, we would then get into the discussion, and potentially it looks, we might have the opportunity to get some thoughts out there for folks who may not be at the next meeting, and then potentially we could either then defer the rest of the discussion for later or call a vote.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Well, then I will just move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Peridot. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 3-0.
I'd like to move to excuse Ms. Hicks and Ms. Ritchie from tonight, too. Well,
I'll second that motion.
Motion to excuse by Mr. Peridot, second by Dr. Kudak. Any discussion? I guess I will add to the discussion that both of those ladies are currently attending the forum and supporting our community, and it was a difficult balancing act, so I understand why they're there. So, with no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion to excuse passes 3-0. Item number 2, approval of the minutes. Let's see if we can attempt to approve the September 11th, 2018 special tax hearing minutes, the September 18th, 2018 special meeting, and the September 18th, the middle one. Both of those first two should have been September 11th, if I didn't state that clearly. And the third one is the September 18th regular meeting. Were there any issues on how the minutes were in your all's packet?
I'll move to adopt those 3 sets of minutes as presented.
second.
Motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Peridot. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving those 3 minutes say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There's no opposition. I believe that one of our members that's here tonight was not at the September 25th meeting, special meeting, so we will have to defer that to our next meeting then.
Okay.
All righty. One of the most pleasant parts of the meeting is the student and staff recognition. That's the part we're on to next.
That's right. We've got a few recognitions tonight. I'd like to first start off, I'm very proud to announce that our own Scarlett Ryan, who's our HR director here for us, has been selected to serve on the Clark County Regional Medical Center's Board of Trustees. She will begin her service on January the 19th, and she'll serve a three-year term. So congratulations.
She's right there. She gets
We're always proud when the community recognizes the talents that are within our school system and asks them to come and serve and to help out in other areas. Very proud of that. The Kentucky Department of Education announced a funding opportunity for a preschool partnership grant in late July with a focus on implementing or enhancing full-day, high-quality programming for at-risk preschool children in a partnership with a local child care provider and with children funded through CCAP who have at least a 3-star rating. Clark County Preschool, in partnership with the Bluegrass Children's Academy on BCTC's campus, has been awarded their $300,000 grant application by the Kentucky Department of Education. The $300,000 preschool partnership grant is a 2-year grant, with half of the funds being released for the school year 18-19 and the remaining half for the 19-20 school year. The grant will supply support for a full-day, 6-hour program, a kindergarten readiness academy for 80 at-risk students for 12 weeks over the 2 summers, and 4 mobile classrooms that can be used as pop-up classrooms supporting early numeracy and early literacy throughout the county at a variety of child care centers. The grant will also support professional development and parent engagement throughout the county. 107 applications were received and 53 grants were awarded, and only 38 of the 53 were awarded the full grant, and we were one of those. So thank you to Kara Davies and her top-notch staff at the preschool for writing this ambition. That's huge for our preschool kids. You want to give out some? We got some
I'd love to.
certificates here. Let me see. It's this group here. The RDC chorus students performed for the opportunity to be selected to the All-State Chorus underneath the instruction of Ms. Stephanie Arthur in September of this year. I'm excited to let you know that we had 5 students that made the Kentucky chapter of the American Choral Directors Association All-State Chorus this year. And as I call your name, if you would come up, we have a certificate for you, and I'm sure that there'll probably be some pictures. He's got his camera ready, so there'll be photos of this too. So, first is Ella Brock.
I'll see if I don't break the picture. Congratulations.
Our next student is Emma Durrance. Got 2 cameras on this one. So.
Uh-oh, better get this one over here. Good job, thank you.
Takia Thomas. Okay. Riley Walls.
Better get this right. Congratulations.
And CJ Wesley. We're all very proud of our new RDC students who are now, excuse me, all state chorus members, so congratulations. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Miss Stephanie Arthur, the chorus director. I'm sorry. We had another. We also have with us tonight, we have 21 bus drivers this year whom are eligible to receive an award as issued by the Winchester Insurance Agency. The drivers qualified for the award based on not only having any no-fault accidents in the past 3 years. The drivers that are eligible for this or that are receiving this award tonight are, as we call you, I'll call the names and
Don't I get to give a speech
or you
first?
can, okay, you got more to add? I'm just proud that we've gone 3 years without an accident. That's what.
It's very good. We have some new names on there. We have
Yes.
some repeats from past years. But I did want to give a little history to why we're doing this. A few years ago, we sat down and realized we had a problem. We had too many bus accidents. We had high frequency and high severity. Those are 2 things that don't blend well with insurance. And so in 2015, we started the Bus Driver Safety Pledge, and we started the Accident Review Committee. That is a committee that I serve on. Jim Rourke is the driver representative. David Nichols serves on that. Danny Fisher does. And we have 2 bus garage representatives, Bruce and Michelle, that every time there's an accident within 48 hours, we all sit down together and review what happened. And not to point fingers at anybody, but just to figure out what happened so we can prevent it. We had too many claims, and this was the first step into figuring out why we had that and to try to get them down. So we did that, and then last year I started this, had this idea of rewarding people. You know, you point fingers enough, you got to reward when good things happen. So last year we did our first annual Driver Safety Awards. We had about the same number of drivers. 3 years, no at-fault accidents in a bus. And now they might have had accidents in their cars, I don't know, you know. But you can see, and I'll give everyone a copy here, our accidents were up here. Now they're down here. In the past couple of years, we've kept the accidents at 8 a year, which is down in half from where they were. And this year so far, we've had none. So the fruits of this have been produced, and we're actually seeing some results from it. Now, I'll pass this along. In addition to the certificate that I believe we have for everyone, I've got a safe driver keychain, calendar for the bus, and a gift card for each driver. So I think I've got the list here. If you're here, come on in. Christy Combs.
Tell you what, before we get into the list, I know I speak for my fellow board members. We're so appreciative of the drivers we have in Clark County. We're proud of our drivers, and sometimes we don't say thanks enough. But on behalf of the board, we want to say thanks. We appreciate you all very much, and I'm so glad that you all are part of our district. Thank you.
Okay.
We have a few out trips tonight too, so yeah.
Okay. Fred Cornett.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Goebel Davis. Christina Estep. Destiny Griffith. Rachel Hatton. Bill Hunt. Laura Johnson.
Thank you
There's
so
a
much.
lot of women on this list.
Keep us guys straight.
Beth Kagan. Rebecca Lopez.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Louise Lumpkins.
Thank you. Gotta get Danny.
Well done. Appreciate it.
Walter Mathis. Laura McCord. Tracy Neely.
Thank you so much.
Teresa Hollingsworth. Donna Puckett. Jim Rorts.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
This one's a little special to me. This was my bus driver in elementary school at Providence. Yes. He says he threw me off the bus. I don't believe him. Daryl Schoffer.
Thank you so much. You're very deserving.
you off like a strike. That was smart, too. Darlene Stinnett. Gary Weddington. And Brenda Willoughby.
So we'll get a group shot with all of them before they go. So
Absolutely.
come on up, guys. We'll get a group shot real quick.
Why don't you all be in there? They won't. Yeah, there we go.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. The flash come on. 1, 2, 3. All right, I did her.
You guys.
Thank you all.
Is that all we have for students?
No, that's all we have for, I have one more recognition to do real quick.
All righty.
We have one other recognition. I'll ask Becky if she will come up. You know, we're very proud of the fact that with our menu, our lunches, our school breakfast, and our lunch program, that we have free lunch and breakfast for all of our students. We've worked really, really hard to get that participation up, and we feel that the breakfast is so important. And we've made great strides in getting kids involved in, getting them in early enough to have breakfast before they start the class, and the principals have been very great and very accommodating to allow that to happen. So here in the office, we've talked about it. We've created an award to go with our attendance awards, and it's calculated the same as the attendance are. So each month, we're going to be giving a breakfast award, a Breakfast of Champions award that goes to the school who has the highest percentage of students eating breakfast. So there's a fork and a spoon. We broke this down into two categories. Our first category is preschool through 4th grade. So that takes in preschool and all of your elementaries. And this month, and we had two principals that called in tonight and had previous engagements and could not make the meeting tonight, and it just so happens it's both of them. I couldn't tell them, but it's both the principals that aren't here tonight. Sheer Elementary with 96% participation in breakfast this last month. So that's one. And for the 5th grade through 12th grade is Baker Intermediate with a participation rate of 77% of all students for the month. So congratulations to both of those schools. And we'll be doing that each month, and that spoon and fork will go to the different schools just like the attendance flag and those awards do. And that's all the recognitions that I have.
Awesome, great stuff. Public comments. Have any public comments back there? Nope. This is our regular meeting. Open for any and all public comments. All righty. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Mr. Christie.
We've got several things. I'll go through them here quickly. On November 5th, which was Monday, we have scheduled many working sessions for teachers. We'll be doing sessions on artful reading, the Kentucky Writing Project, the Literacy Design Collaborative, and some additional guided reading trainings. And in mentioning that, I want to mention too how important, I want to emphasize how important, and Ms. Considine and I were talking about this today, how important it is that in our schedule that you continue to build in days, teacher work days. I'd like to see, personally, we talked about, would like to see more than the one, because that's the day where we have those folks come in and we can take care of so many things on those days. And it can be done sometimes in a more timely fashion in the middle of the year instead of doing these things in the summer that don't take place till late in the year. So this opportunities like this, those teacher work days are great for that. I'd like to announce that we have hired a Title II coordinator. His name is Michael York. He'll be beginning with us soon. He's currently transitioning from KDE to our district. He'll be working with all the Title II coordination of teacher improvement. He'll be working with the Striving Readers Grant and some other teacher professional development type activities. So he's in the middle of a transition right now. I'd like to let you know that the book bus that we run all summer, we ran it during fall break and saw 334 kids during the fall break that had and put books in the hands of 334 students. The Superintendent's Veterans Day Art Contest is underway. All those that are going to be submitting entries, they're due by November the 13th. Student Spotlight PLCs, these are some special education notes. The Student Spotlight PLCs began this month with each building focusing on students with disabilities and literacy. The purpose of the PLC is to spotlight student accomplishments and to identify potential instructional needs in order to address student achievement. And as you're going to hear about later, you know, we have the two schools that's an area in a couple of schools that we want to have a really pronounced emphasis on. So that's just the beginning of the work to do that. The district's teacher of the visually impaired, Ms. Jasmine DeGrant, was nominated by, she's in our district, she was nominated by Professor at the University of Kentucky, Gerald Abner, to receive the International Alliance for Invitational Education's John Piper Memorial Fellowship. The fellowship included a full conference registration to the 2018 World Conference in Georgetown, Kentucky on October 10th and 11th. It's a one-year membership in the association and a public recognition during the open session of the conference. Clark County is very honored to have Ms. DeGrant on staff. And in case you didn't make the connection, that Jasmine, that's Mr. Nichols' daughter. So she's with us now here in our district. District level consultative sessions are being offered for the special education teacher and related service providers on a regular basis. That's ongoing, and this purpose is to provide supports as related to the certified evaluation components. District staff attended professional trainings provided by legal expert Ms. Teresa Combs related to Section 504 and special ed needs this last week. School counselors received 504 update training by our district staff. This past Saturday, Clark County was represented at the State Olympics bowling competition, and students from around the district came home with a variety of awards. Lindsay Caudle, she's a Baker intermediate teacher, is now organizing basketball for students who would like to participate in the Special Olympics in basketball later this fall. Our migrant, the Clark County Migrant Program is currently serving 81 students throughout the district within school and home tutoring services and different kinds of outreach into the community. They also held their annual migrant parent involvement meeting where they had 42 attendees, of which 16 adults were provided flu shots and biometric screenings by the Bluegrass Community Health Care Center. 12 parents were introduced and taught how to navigate the Clark County Parent Portal by Jennifer Winberg here at Central Office, who also provided those parents with their logins and their password information. 17 kids were there and enjoyed doing crafts with Wendy O'Connor from the library. During the event, our migrant program provided parents with interpreting services, snacks, drinks, and transportation services to the event that evening. November is College and Career Readiness Month at RDC in collaboration with several local businesses, Partners in Education, 4-H, GRC, high school and the ATC, local colleges and community partners. They've scheduled several events for the month. Those events include the first RDC College and Career Fair on November the 2nd and the 5th Annual RDC Job Shadowing Program on November 7th through the 9th and the 5th Annual It's Your Reality Life Fair on November the 19th. In addition, RDC will be having their 5th Annual Veterans Day program at 9 a.m. on November the 12th. I've got just some quick things I'd like to mention about some athletics. RDC's cross country. I'd like to compliment Coach Dodd Dixon and his staff for the work that they do and the dedication, the time that they take with these young kids. They start them out as early as we run buses from the elementary schools to get these kids there to participate. Their 6th grade girls team this year had their best showing in Clark County history, and they placed 15th in the state. The 6th grade boys placed 5th in the state this year, and they already have set a goal of winning the state next year. So they have everybody back, and that's their goal. They've already set for next year is to win that. The middle school boys placed 11th in the state, And we have multiple student athletes that are competing at the national level beginning in November. And as they compete, we'll have those kids come in and we'll be able to recognize those. Since our last meeting at the high school, our high school girls volleyball team won the district tournament, and they were defeated in the regional semifinals. They made it all the way to the semifinals. The girls soccer team won the district championship and the regional championship, and I think they were defeated last night in the first round of the state competition. The girls golf were regional runner-up. Boys soccer were district runner-up, and the football is the district runner-up, and they will host, first time in a long time I think, but we're hosting a first round of the playoffs on November the 2nd, where we'll be playing Cooper High. So that's some things in the athletics that we've got going. We've got a lot going on in a lot of different areas right now.
Great stuff. Just as I say, a programming note, Mr. Elkins also has a commitment later on this evening. Will probably be leaving us about 7:30 or so. And he's committed that he can continue to communicate through the marvel of our smartphones if there's any additional questions that come up. And I believe he'll be monitoring our meeting because we're also broadcast right now. So just a note about that in case there's any questions.
We'll text you during your opening statement.
We'll try not to do that. But certainly if something comes up that's controversial, we can always take a break because we want to make sure we address everything to the fullest extent necessary. All righty. Item number 4 then. We can move on to second month attendance update. Mr. Howell.
Did I make the cuts?
You did.
Okay, all right, good. So we want to take a look at the second month attendance. And kudos to Strode Station, second consecutive month for leading the district in attendance, 96.39%. Very strong percentage for second month attendance there. Overall, the district average was 94.69, and from day 1 to October 4th, when the second month ended, we're at 95.19%. That's above what we were last year.
Just curious, Mr. Holland, our attendance this week coming back from fall break.
I did not get a chance to check in on that yet, but I can report on that next month.
Very good. Thank you, sir. So item number 5 was identified as potentially something that we should defer. Shall we, because the other members have the opportunity to watch this on YouTube afterwards.
I'm fine.
Shall we go ahead and-
There'll be stuff on next week's agenda related to this, so.
Okay. All right. Okay with you, Ms.
Ms.
Meredith?
Bush is prepared, so. We should really not wait on this.
In answering some of your questions last month that I couldn't answer,
Yes.
I have put a lot of things on the consent item, but I made copies just of the things I'm going to pull out because it was 155 pages.
Right.
And I didn't think
Okay.
you'd want me to go over 155 pages.
No.
If you can hand that out, please.
This is all this for.
I think your first question last month was about TSI.
Yes.
Targeted. And then we have comprehensive support for our schools. As you are aware now, when you open your folder, it's the very first one. And like I said, there are many PowerPoints on this in the consent item that you can look in full view. We have 3 schools. To be in the targeted support and improvement, you have an enrollment of a group of 10 or more. We have 3 schools that are in that category. 2 are for special ed purposes, and another is for our African American population. Please stop me if you have any questions.
Okay, I will.
On the very first stapled together, if you'll go to the next page, you'll see that next year we start a tier phase of targeted support and improvement. Right now, we're just in the bottom phase for the where you have your 10%. your 10% of group, we would have our special ed, our African American, and our ELL students. Yes,
Which package should I be on?
that one right there in front of you.
This one?
Mhm, they're all in order.
Okay, very good. They might have
And we've moved to the next page.
gotten mixed up in the.
So that's for this year, but I also want to talk about things that are coming up because we are already in obviously the 2018-19 school year. So you will see this year you'll have a tier 2 and you'll also have a tier 1. Ms. Considine and I, we have talked with the administration, and when you focus on one thing, whether it's reading or math or whatever it may be, another thing may slip or fall another subject or area. So we've been talking in our curriculum and instruction meetings about focusing on all your groups, not just on the one that you happen to be in TSI right now. So we're making a very conscious effort not to do just the areas that put us in that category now, but on all 3 areas. Now, to talk about the CSI, we do not want to be there at all, not ever. Things that happen with CSI, that would be you would lose your SBDM, totally.
Okay.
You have to write a whole different plan along with your CCIP. It will have to be approved by the Commissioner of Education. They will look and do an audit on whether your leadership in your school can handle the school. They will look and do an audit at your district level to see if they, at the school level, can handle their academic and monetary provisions that they have at that level for the school. They'll do us an audit as well at the district. So we never want to be in CSI. Hopefully we will never, and that's our goal. There is an issue with TSI. If we happen to be in it for more than 3 years, you're automatically put into CSI. So we have to very due diligent and make sure that our groups do not fall in those categories for 3 or more years. So the very first question, and at my DAC meetings, I've heard 2 things, and I just emailed last week to ask again. The first thing we heard is if we're in here for one category and we bring that category out of TSI, but we happen to fall in another category, does that start for 2 years? Are you still in your cycle or does it start over? Our very first DAC meeting, they said it's 2 years. And then an email I sent to Jennifer Stafford last week, because the principals were very concerned and we wanted to know a definite answer. They said they're taking that back to the board. So we don't have an answer on that yet. And I sent that email
This is a
to
lot of TSI schools.
Over 50%.
I was going to say, yeah.
And of that 58, of the 50, I think it was 55%, about 97% of those were in the area of special needs.
You'll notice on one of your consent items, the information that I sent you, there's one that's CSI for the entire state and one that is TSI for the entire state, and you can see them in alphabetical order on your consent items. Does that help with anything with TSI and
Yes.
CSI
Another
right
thing
now?
that just came out today, an email from the commissioner, they put together a group that's going to go back now and look at how these cut scores, where the cuts are on this, and how they calculate this. The groups, they're going back and they put together a team of superintendents, principals, DACs, curriculum folks. They're going back to revisit that, and that could be subject to change on how they calculate this for next year.
Remember, what we're in right now is just for 1 year.
Transition, yeah.
And then next year is different. The very next stapled sheet in your folder, it starts with indicators in the system.
Well, let's go back up a little bit. Since the majority of TSI schools are in for disability, what is the state going to do to help the many schools in the Commonwealth to do something about this? Because if that many schools are having an issue, then either the cut score is in the wrong place or we all need assistance from the state.
The only assistance that you'll get if you're a TSI school is you'll get a helper from KDE, is what Mrs. Considine and I learned in a meeting last week. You can call, we're in a hub school, and we can go and we can observe these schools that are 97%. That's the only assistance that you'll get from the state. There's no monetary and there's no personnel as in coming and helping us. It's up to the district.
Or no punitive of anything.
How about like analysis, like looking at data? I mean,
I will,
For me, for the problem to be this large and to affect this many schools, tells me it's a system-wide problem. And either your test is not accurate or your test hasn't covered some things that we really need to be looking at as a state as a whole.
I will tell you that we've been proactive, and the principals and Mr. Christie and Mrs. Considine and I, we've got together and tried to brainstorm some ideas. We've already done that in the last 3 weeks. Our next goal is to have an African American committee together to see what we can do differently there. And I know that Mr. Christie has put some things in place for ELL students because we are getting an influx of that particular situation.
I had to add growth teacher, and I calculated, I put it in as a growth teacher, 2 of them actually. We have, high school now is at 5, Campbell has 3 or 4 non-English speaking students, and we're really struggling in that area, so then that's another area we gotta be careful, so because those numbers have grown, we added a growth teacher there.
We're having students like never before that
Yeah.
have never been in
Got one
school,
today,
or they
high
stopped
school.
at 6th grade and from the country that they've come from. So we have to address their needs as well. Okay, so the next one is what we're going to look at for next year. Your proficiency will be the same, reading and math for all 3 levels. Your separate indicator will be your science, social studies, and writing, and that is just for elementary and middle school. Your growth is still reading and math for the elementary and the middle. Your transition readiness will be for all grade levels next year. And at the current state we're in, it was for the 2018 test, it was just high school.
Okay.
Graduation rate, your new is achievement gap closure, gap to groups, and gap to proficiency. That will be a new one for this year. And the opportunity and access has been pushed to 2019 to 2020.
Okay. How do we define transition readiness?
Okay.
That's a new term for me, and I'm sure it's an old term, which we have a new name for, because that's what happens
It's
with
okay.
these things.
And as soon as we learn it, they're going to change it anyway. So transition readiness is the attainment of the necessary knowledge, skills, and disposition for a student to successfully transfer to the next grade level. Because we're trying to figure out what's that going to look like in elementary and middle school. Because when you typically talk about transition, you're talking about from high school to college.
Right.
But for the next year, that's going to be at all 3 levels.
And it's from grade to grade, or from school, from
grade to grade.
from elementary to middle and middle to high, but it's all grades.
Students at the elementary and middle school levels will meet a benchmark of a composite score. And what that composite score is supposedly going to be is a student performance in reading, math, grades 4 and 7 will have science, 5th and 8th will have social studies, and writing will be at 5 and 8. So right now, our proficiency is just math and reading combination, but for our transition readiness, they're all going to be combined as another score, all 5 together. That answer your question, sir?
Sort of.
Clear as mud.
The opportunity.
That'll definitely change by.
Opportunity and access put off another year, that's one where the state would have to provide some supports to make sure that school are equitable on some things, and that's gonna cost. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's been pushed off another year.
What started the controversy with opportunity and access was a counselor, the school counselor. Some schools share, and in that particular, it said you had to have your own, and that was at a disadvantage for those school districts that couldn't afford it. So that was one of the conversations that started pushing that off for another year.
And the committee of people put together to look at the cut scores that the commissioner just put together, it's a result of the cut scores where they're set for the special ed, because of so many schools were in that category, and there was so much of a pushback on that, and that's what started that group.
Okay. Mr. Christie and I were talking about growth before the meeting started. Any comments on that? That's always been.
Oh, I have
if you look at the accountability system over the years, the 8 years I've been on the school board, growth has been difficult. It's important, but it's difficult to measure, and it's hard to penalize. To me, some of the growth systems I've used in the past have penalized schools that have been high achieving, because some of these schools, there's not a lot of room for growth, and they've suffered on the rating scale. And so what's the new improved version of growth that the state has now?
May I finish this one thing
Sure.
first? Okay. Your next one will be the 5-star system, and it will be in place.
But it's not a way to rank schools or anything.
But yeah, but it's not a way to rank anything. Dual credit, if we'll finish up what's going to happen next year. Since I have uploaded the information to you, the board has already met in October, and they have changed the dual credit score of a B or higher already to a C. So in your next PowerPoint that you see that is dual credit, it's the newest update, and they have already changed that to a C and higher. And what I've done on the next form that looks like this is what is projected for the freshman 2019 school year. They will have to choose and be prepared, and the wording so far is fundamental level, the personalized level, the academic transition ready, and then you'll have your career ready. So they're kind of looking as this is your freshman, your sophomore, your junior, and your senior year. The biggest question when the DACs get together and talk about this is how are you going to do a fellowship or you have students that go out to the workforce. You're going to have to figure out what that's going to look like. An apprenticeship type, what's that going to look like for Clark County? And that's going to be a big discussion with GRC. Now you will notice for the very first time, ACT has novice, apprentice, proficient, and distinguished. And I've already added what currently we're used to the benchmarks. But you'll notice this year, we have it divided out for what we normally see on K-Prep. I've included the timeline, so if you are just really bored and you want to see what they're actually going to do with our graduation rates and our graduation itself, you can see that it'll come again in October for the first read, December, January, and so forth. So things are still up in the air. Like I said, by the time I uploaded the first one, it was a B for your dual credit, and now it is down to a C. I also included some definitions that they are now throwing at us. It's hard to keep up with everything that's going on at KDE.
It's amazing how much has changed from February.
And we're still not finished.
I was at a session at the KSB annual meeting on assessment because I knew it was changing. This is a lot different. Okay.
Hopefully we'll have some new sessions in December.
So we're trying to figure out ourselves how in the world they do growth. Growth itself does not make any sense just to be honest with us, because we have one school that we sent in specific data on students to explain this to us. Because if you're a proficient, you can still lose points.
Right.
But there's not a high and a low in proficient and distinguished. But in novice and apprentice, there is a high and a low section in both of those. So you should have the same scores, but we don't. And we gave them proof, and they told us that it takes account of Christy Bush's current scores, Christy Bush's past performance, and then Christy Bush and all her peers around her make a 2-year projection for that growth chart. So since I uploaded this, I have included the email I just got today because I am sure they had enough complaints that Dr. Lewis has decided to make a committee to discuss growth and change, keep, or amend it in some way. They have also listed the members of the committee and their very first meeting, which is tomorrow. So they've heard us. We hope.
First meeting tomorrow.
Mathematically, I'm not a mathematician. I'm sure it probably makes sense in some way, but you can't get negative points if you're already proficient and distinguished. It just doesn't make any sense to us.
Because the whole point of growth is moving kids up the scale, right? I mean, and that's something that, on an individual student basis, that's kind of been ingrained in us, that's what we're trying to do, so.
I've told Brenda, when we were at a meeting, KDE, I swear said this, pretend that you're playing a golf game and growth is your par, and I don't play golf, but the growth should go down And the less you are under par, the better you are. That's what this growth is supposed to define to us.
Would you like a statement to take back to KC?
You
This
said
comes
it-
from the rules of golf, and I used to play a lot, and par is the score an expert golfer will make on a given hole. So,
So,
A lot of four-letter words in golf.
I don't have to remind Gordy of that, so.
but
He's an
we are
expert
supposed
golfer.
to compare
so.
growth to our growth. That makes a whole lot of sense. I hope I answered your questions that I couldn't answer last week. I know that's.
Yes, thank
I hope
you.
I did. You're welcome. What I uploaded on number 5 was our beautiful colored charts. You'll see that proficiency, of course, is math and reading, and then your separate, your academic indicators are, again, your social studies, your science, and your writing. And then your growth for the middle school and elementary is the first slide. And transition readiness is next. You have your graduation rate, and if you need to look at the cut scores, I also sent you what was going to be in the newspaper.
Okay,
So,
I got
you know,
that,
that's,
yeah.
so this is kind of the same thing, just in a different format. But you'll see your cut scores. So for our elementary, the cut score was 60.5, and we're at 77.3. Your middle school cut score was 62, we're at 77.3. And your high school cut score was 40 for the state, and we are 58.6. Of course, with graduation, Mr. Bowling is doing a great job. You know, we are at 97.7, and the state's cutoff is 85. We've always been going uphill with that.
That puts us at tied for 15th in the state.
Right.
Out of 173 districts.
I really appreciate all the work. I know how much work it goes into, maintaining that graduation rate, and that's gone up every year I've been on the board, and I'd like to just say thank you to everybody that's done that, so, because we've got it down to individual students, individual cases. You guys are doing a lot of one-on-one work, keeping those folks in and engaged, and, you know, the longer they're in school, I think the better a chance I have to be successful, so I really appreciate that.
When you look at pages 2 through 7, those are not percentages, those are points. And those points are out of 125. Because you're getting points and getting points taken away for your novice, apprentice, proficient, and distinguished. So that makes up the point system for your math and reading. On page 4 is 125. On page 5 is again 125. Your growth range is 150 to a negative 150. I still do not have an explanation of how they come up with that. Transition readiness, of course, is another. And if you see zeros, we did have students, but we did not have more than 10 that particular year. They're suppressed for FERPA purposes. And of course, graduation is out of 100%. And if you'll go to page 9, proficient and distinguished, I think that we can look a little bit at last year because of reading and math. You do have that on your school report card. And last year we were at 56. This year we are at 57.5. Middle school, 57.8. This year we're at 62.8. And the benchmark, of course, was what was done last year, so I don't have anything to compare that to because now it's novice, proficient, distinguished. And, okay. Math was 56.5. This year is 57.6. And middle school, 51.3, 54.9. So we're making strides of going upward, which is great. And I would give anything if Mrs. Hicks had been here tonight because I wanted to talk about writing. We are moving up. Last year, we were at 21.2 for middle school. We went 33.1.
Our new hospital board member, she's getting new information as we speak.
She's telling me I'm talking too long, so I have to move on. Okay, I'll move on. That's my hint. Thank you.
Be from Eastern Kentucky, she's singing you down.
I'm looking at peppermint. Okay, I'll hurry. That was my clue. So we do have some progress in writing, which is a good thing.
Yeah, we went up. We were in the 20s in a lot of those categories
Yes.
last year.
So that's a great
significant
improvement,
progress.
and of course, we're gonna keep on going. Math also has some great, this distinguished, I'll spit it out in a minute. Distinguished went from 18 at the elementary level to 20. I'm just telling you some high points there. You're so funny. And I do have to say, we have 3 schools in TSI, but if you look at their reading and math scores independently from the TSI, label, they have grown tremendous amounts, upward. I cannot say enough about those 3 schools and how much in reading they have grown if you look at those scores independently. I do think that we need to do some work in social studies. We need to obviously focus on social studies and science at all grade levels because it builds on each other, and we don't want to wait until we get to a testing grade at 7th and they've not had it. May had a little bit, may not had much. We've got to continue, even though you're not tested at the particular grade level of your grade span, we need to keep that on because we're a district, not just one school. So I'd like to see us look at social studies and science a little more.
Right. Hopefully now that we have a stable set of science curriculum, that would help.
Now, we still will not be tested at the high school level for social studies until the standards have been totally defined and approved for next year. And obviously, I think you know by now that ATC has been the vendor that has been approved.
Right.
And that is, I think, March the 12th or 13th of this year, but I'll get that date specifically to you.
Okay.
What else can I tell you? I have lots, but my boss lady here in the front row has told me to hurry up. Any other questions?
No, that's fine. That, I think I had a lot of questions about where the state accountability score system was now. Brenda and I have had an ongoing conversation about this, but yeah, and I realize it's going to change next year. It's interesting to see exactly how different this was from February, but and I anticipate more change, but, still, we can complain a lot, that things are going to be moved around, but, we still have to play by the rules, so.
We just need to teach our kiddos,
Right.
make
So,
them productive adults. But if I've not cleared up anything, please email me. I'll be glad to
Okay.
look anything up you all need.
Okay.
Is that good?
Where do you think this is going to go with disability? Because seriously, if you've got, 50% of the schools statewide in TSI and the lion's share of that is disability, something that's a big statewide problem, so.
I honestly do not know the answer to that. I guess the first thing we need to look at is see what he does with this group just for growth, because that was the first thing that came out, and, we really just harped on everybody in the state, so we'll see if he really takes it seriously and does something about it, or if it's just for fluff.
Right.
And then he'll have to address the other issues, the other categories. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Peridot, did you have any questions on that? I want to make sure you didn't. I'm good. Left out.
I asked enough. Judy wasn't here, so I figured I'd ask hers too. So.
All righty. Item number 6, consider approval of welding electronic brake press. This is a non-trivial amount of money. What's the sense on whether, do you all want to hear a presentation on it and then maybe postpone it for consideration to the next meeting, or what's your all's thought on that?
I'd be prepared to hear it tonight, because this has been discussed once
Yeah,
already.
we've already heard it
so,
once.
we just wanted more specifics, so here are the specifics.
Okay? Okay, sure. Mr. Wilson? Oh, there you are, sir. Oh, you're just at the forum also.
Yes.
We're making around this great town, aren't we?
Yeah, we're moving around pretty quick. Well, we'd like to, lobby your support for this. I think this could be a piece of machinery that kind of sets our welding program off to the state of the art with giving our kids a chance to learn a skill and a trade that would make them very employable in the surrounding counties. And of course, hopefully they'll live here and bring the money back here. But and I'm going to let Mr. Hall kind of give you more specifics on it. We went back and looked at 2 different brakes, and I think it's a pretty admirable thing. I think it's about the same cost, to be truthful with you, but we got a lot more features with this. Plus, it's a company that's based out of Cincinnati that will be a whole lot easy or accessible to us, and we'll be able to give us some feedback there. So, any questions that you all want to ask us about it? I mean,
So tell us, give us what our options are.
I brought Scott Gilliland, he's from Olympic Steel, and I got him to really help me with this, and he really broke down the three quotes, the pros, the cons to it, the different safety features, because when I went back and looked, I made sure that student safety was paramount, and then also training for them was as well, especially with offline content. Going back to what Christy Bush talked about earlier with transition readiness, a lot of my students do online dual credit already, and so when I'm teaching them on the CNC plasma cutter that I have, I purchased when we did that as a $45,000 purchase. I have a lot of offline content already, so I can put it on multiple computers, so they can sit there. I can actually give them a jump drive so they can take it home and actually learn how to use the software. And so with some of these quotes, that's pretty much what I asked for. They said, hey, I want the ability that if I wanted to give this to a student so that they could take it home, work on the weekend, do some training as well, that they could sit there and do that. And so I looked at other machines. They didn't have that option. And so, that was paramount for me, because now instead of me just having 2 or 3 students that I can sit there and really train, I can sit there and train multiple students in a computer lab and let them see exactly how to use a piece of equipment instead of just being one person. I only get to a few. So, but I've got Scott right here, and he can sit there and talk about. Now there was a sheet that I presented. It had an executive summary. I got that today,
Okay.
and I said, I asked for it several weeks ago, and he has some family issues, and I apologize for that. But I said, I want student safety paramount on that sheet of paper, the options that are there, and then also the training as well.
We have 3 quotes that are pretty much right about in the same ballpark, 2 are the same, because both of the Cincinnati presses are $87,000 and the Adira is $89,000. So what's the positives and negatives for each of those proposals?
The Cincinnati press, we always talked about being local. It's an American-made product, really close. All the factory training, everything's just an hour away from us here. Looking at the options, though, I think one of the things to address is the safety on these. It's one of the more, as far as the machine and its safety, this type has more possibility, potential for executive summary. In the industry, we look at safety on these machines, and there is a lot of accidents that can happen with these. And the Cincinnati has the option here for the Black Max light curtain, and also the interlocked end and rear safety systems. The other quote did have a safety device, but it was not the Black Max, which in our experience is the better one. Did not have the interlocked rear or safety systems, which is, I think, exceptional, or especially required, because you've got, with the CNC machine, you've got moving parts in the rear of the machine. You want that interlocked where they can't get in that. So that's very important. The software that the Cincinnati offers is definitely a great software. And they're also offering some tooling on here. What makes me more prone towards Cincinnati is the local service, the local help and support. That's exceptional. If there is a problem, they're right there, can get to you quickly. But more importantly, it's more of an industry standard. In our company, we have 13 divisions. We have approximately 25 press brakes in our company. Of those 25, 14 of them are Cincinnati's. And if you have a student or a potential employee that has experience on a Cincinnati, it's much more important for me to look for that and to bring them on board in our place. We do a lot of internships with different places. Right now we're having an internship with maintenance with the community technical college system. And to have the ability to have someone with any kind of knowledge that we could put in that area is just an exceptional benefit. And if you go to most of the fabrication places that you'll find around here that involve welding, any experience you can get with press brakes would be great, and the Cincinnati's going to give you that more than the other one.
Of the two Cincinnati press brakes, which is the one you would prefer? Because we have the 60 PS and the 90 BX.
The 90-ton gives you more capability. It's a little wider also, so you have a wider variety of parts you could form with it. You can always form something in a 4-inch area, but when you form it across 10 foot, it adds a level of complexity to it that you wouldn't find. And if you go in industry and look, very few people will be forming 4-inch parts. We form up to 16-foot parts, and we have one machine now that can do up to 20 foot. There's just a level of complexity with that, and by giving you the 90 tons, you can do the longer parts, you can do the thicker parts. You don't want to be limited to what you're doing, because there's a big difference in forming little thin parts versus big thick parts.
The other thing I would add to that too is if we get the piece of machinery, that would be a plus for the district, because I know the district has to go some places and get this type of work done, and it would be a cost effective for that for also, but it would also be, Mr. Heisel asked about costs and charging. If other districts know that we have this machine, then we can charge a fee to them to do that too, you know what I'm saying? So it'd be some return on your money. Now, I'm not gonna say you're gonna get all your money back, but it's gonna be some return on your money, because we'll be able to do that for other districts or other companies and stuff like that. From what I understand, there's no surrounding area that even have this type.
That none of the schools do.
Right.
We've got a machine shop there where I work there in the back, and I had our head guy take a look at it, and so he could try to interpret it for me. If I understood him correctly, he said that this model will handle up to a 1/2 inch thick metal. Is that correct?
Yeah, it depends on the length, but yeah, definitely for the width, it would handle a thicker material.
So what he came away from on this is, these are excellent pieces of machinery, but he said, I wonder, since funds are always limited, and if we spend it on this, then we can't spend it on, something else there at the ATC, whether this was overkill in terms of, the type of equipment that we would get, whether, is there something that's a little bit smaller that would be more designed for, not a production environment, but for training and education or something like that. That was the biggest thing he came away from his analysis of this.
Yeah, there is that option. We've looked at, in our business, we've looked at some smaller machines, very specific application type machines. With the higher tonnage, it definitely gives you the ability to experience more situations. And I think that's the difference. It's a saying we have is, if you get just a little bit, that's all you're going to get. But if you plan for the future, the 90-ton will give you much more capability. Now, are you comparing the 90-ton to the 60-ton, or a different type of machine entirely?
I think he was thinking that, again, with the limited funds that we have in total, that, maybe something in the lower range, like a sub $20,000 range, might be a good tool that our students can learn on, and we'll give them a good foundation, and then that would free up funds, to be able to invest in other areas of the ATC.
If you look at the price range you're talking about, well, you're not going to get the complexity of the CNC control that you're going to get with these. You're really restricting what they're going to learn. It's not just tonnage and weight of the machine, size of the machine, it's also the software and how that's utilized. With this simulation software that comes with it is excellent. The kids can do this, not at the machine, they can do that, like I said, at home or anywhere else. These are options that you're not going to get in some of your smaller machines. I think the complexity of the CNC process with these higher capable machines. See, you always got to look at the CNC axes. In other words, the axis of movements that are allowed. With these machines, you're going to have 5 axes of movement, whereas with some of the cheaper ones, you're probably not going to get any. These have what they call CNC back gauges, which everyone in the industry uses. With the smaller machines and cheaper machines, you're not going to get those at all.
Mr. Peridot, concerns, thoughts?
I'm good.
Okay. I appreciate the information. I think it's probably something that I would want to continue to look at some other options, that's just my single vote. So I think it probably would be inappropriate to take a vote tonight on it. But it's something certainly, if we bring this up at another meeting, since obviously I'm just one vote out of 5, it could be the majority of the board might want to go ahead and move forward on this. So I very much appreciate your all's research on it. This is, I think we definitely want to get these, certainly from my perspective, some sort of press break out there, because it'd be a great addition for our ATC. And then the question is exactly which one to get. So thank you very much for coming tonight and speaking with us, and appreciate you all both coming. And what I'd like to do is put this on the next meeting that we have, so we can discuss it further. I don't want to keep kicking it down the road too far, but put it on the very next meeting then to get the input of the full board then. Fair enough, guys? Mm-hmm. All righty, thanks again. All righty.
Need a motion on that table?
Yeah, we probably do. I'll make a motion to table item number 6.
Second.
All right. Motion to table item number 6 to the next meeting, or to a future meeting?
To a future meeting.
Okay.
To a meeting to be determined.
Motion to table by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Peridot. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That'll tidy it up then. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, item number 7, review of the first quarter finances for the general fund. Alicia Ellis.
So this is pretty standard now. For about a year we've been doing these quarter reviews. So we're at the first quarter of our new fiscal year, and as you can see, we're comparing the last 2 fiscal years at the same time frame, and we are still right on track, a couple percentage different than we have been previous quarter, but still right on track for how we have operated the last 2 years at this quarter. Are there any concerns after looking at it that you want to highlight anything, or?
I didn't see any major outliers, did you?
No.
How's
How's
the district's cash flow position right now? Because we're kind of at our bottom right now.
Yes, this is
because we
the
don't
time
have
that
any
we are at our.
property tax revenues yet.
We are at our lowest right now, but we are still within
Okay.
means to meet. With
So
no
we had the
problems.
discussion about spending down the contingency. This is the time of year where you use the contingency to keep your cash flow
Yes.
afloat. So, okay.
No, we're having that construction money kind of helps. We're all in one bank, so the
Okay.
cash flow is good because of that, because we still have a projected time frame of, construction for a while, that we've got the
Okay.
cash sitting in the bank for that.
Okay.
But
If you took construction out of that, would you be having some issues?
no, we still
Okay.
would not have issues.
Okay.
Even if you spent down every dollar of the contingency right now, we'd still have 2 million in cash. So, we're
Okay.
sitting at 11 million.
Cash is
So we're
good.
still, cash is good. Any other questions?
I think it's an excellent format that you have, and we appreciate you working on that and developing it for us very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Item number 8, discuss and consider approval of initiatives resulting from the On the Table Community Forum and the On the Table Report in collaboration with the Clark County Community Foundation. And I tried to put this close at the beginning of the session, but unfortunately it's 7:43 by the time we got to it. So we really appreciate the work that the foundation has done, and the 3 of you all coming tonight. Of course, we always appreciate you, Mr. Stone. Thank you. Did you want to say anything, Mr. Stump, or shall we turn it over to the foundation for their thoughts on it? And then Mr. Chrissy, of course, we want to get your input on it also, because since we talked about this back in July, I believe your executive board is reviewed this report also and has some input on it. But how would you all like to proceed?
What I did was, with the entry for the board, was just to get a placeholder on there, and I don't see that piece in there that's got that. We listed as a group, we met as a cabinet here and talked about areas that we felt were things that we could get help with, and where we needed to beef up some security type things. That seemed to be the biggest, one of the largest parts of on the table was the security. We looked at, and I don't have a sheet in front of it, I listed you 3 or 4 of the things that we came up with that.
I didn't see it.
Oh, thought it was on the transmittal sheet, that's where some project considerations that we discussed was some more intense staff training on emergency response plans, some equipment called Rhino door locking systems for the classrooms and common areas of the schools. The Rhino door locking system is the thing that goes at the bottom of the door, on any door, that in case of a true emergency, manual dexterity is one of the first things that goes. So all this takes is that we now have all classrooms where there are kids for any reason in the room, the doors are closed and locked. But this is an additional piece of equipment that a staff member or student, all they do is take their foot and just basically kick at it. It automatically locks the door down, and nothing short of a battering ram will come inside the door. But there is a tool that the administration and law enforcement would have that would allow them to gain access to the room. So that was one thing that we looked at. And our first thoughts on that was to do that in our high traffic areas, our cafeterias, our libraries, our gymnasiums, where large numbers of students are gathered. You don't have that opportunity a lot of times to gather them in the corner as quickly as you would in a classroom. So we thought that was one thing that could be done. We also discussed the possibility of additional radios. We talked about and I don't have mine on it, all my staff has theirs on their IDs, but we talked about having those where there was an actual panic button. But we kind of leaned more toward the possibility of having radios. All rooms have phones in them where they can make contact from there. We would, if you so desire us to do that, would look more at the panic buttons on the IDs. Our concern there was teachers working in the classroom with kids, always bent over doing things with kids, the hands-on type things, those buttons accidentally being hit. That was something that we were concerned about. So, but that's something else that we could look into. Another thing that we discussed was the window safety film. It does not make windows bulletproof, but it makes windows shatterproof, to where if there was a gunshot or someone did take a tool and tried to break a window, that the glass is not going to come out. It's still transparent. It could be used over all classroom windows. It could be used over your common areas, some of the common area windows, the doors in those areas. That was the things that, we talked about. Those are things that we were interested in pursuing, and my putting that on there was more or less to get that information out to both groups to see what your direction is and what you want us to pursue, if there are other things.
Okay. Thank you for that. Ms. Cunningham, we appreciate you coming tonight, and congratulations on the expansion of your family.
Thank you.
I guess, this is our opportunity to, have an open discussion about it. Again, it was awesome that you all did this on the table work in the spring. You all have a report that I believe the version of it that we got in July, it's almost about the same version that we have right now.
Right.
And I think there was, as your group has looked at it, there's nothing that was substantive wrong. And we said, golly gee Whittakers, we probably shouldn't, have that in there.
There have been other things in there that we have since addressed and already have in place, like the tip lines, some of those things, and we operate on. Thank you. Those are operational, and we're receiving tips on those periodically, and there's a process to go through those. It's working through the Kentucky Department, or the Kentucky Center for Safe Schools. It's already in place. It was a result of this. We've got some things that we've already done, but these things that we talked about here and we talked about cabinet are things that are additional things that we could consider.
So in terms of the wording, did you all have any objection to the wording that we wanted to pass along with them? So it seems like we've had a chance to look at the wording. Sorry we're not as fast as perhaps we should be. And so if it fits your all schedule, it seems like it might be time to go ahead and unveil this and present it to the community so everybody can see this, see the results, because I know there's been a lot of interest in what happened with the report. Where are we?
Right. We wanted your all kind of thoughts and approval on that, and then we will be working with the Winchester Sun, and as well as some other printers to actually get physical copies printed and handed out to everyone in Winchester that would like to review a copy. So we're
Super.
excited for that.
So in terms of where do we go go to from here? I know you've expressed to me in an email that the foundation's interested in working on a collaboration with the school system in the future. And thankfully, that collaboration would be not only advice and friendship and support, but some financial support too. What areas do you all, and of course, want to look to the other two board representatives that are here, what areas interest you all? Do you all want to do more hard items that would be specific safety upgrades, or something having to do with staffing? What is your all's perspective on what you do want to do? Because I think all those would be awesome, and since you all are providing the money, we want to be very highly respectful of your all's preferences.
Right, and I'll let Alex and Danny speak up if they have anything to say, but we are looking at giving at least $50,000 this first year, as well as $25,000 a year for the next 5 years to sustain whatever programs you do start because of this initiative. And so we know that whatever you start now could and should continue into the future. We don't want this to be a short-term, one-time thing. And so mainly we want to look at really anything that kind of comes out of the report, but we would like to at least see one of the solutions that have been proposed by the students, just so that the students who participated, we did have over 350 students from 5th through 12th grade participate in the discussions, and so we really want to make sure that they understand that their voices were heard, and they proposed some great solutions. I think, Mr. Christie, you said some of those have already been implemented with the tip lines and other things. And so really we would hope to get a couple of ideas or proposals from the board, with at least one of those being from one of the student proposed solutions from the report.
Of course, one of those, the STOP, it's called STOP tip line. It's not just it's an anonymous reporting that goes through the state and comes back to us. It's not just for bullying, it's for any kind of dangerous behaviors that students observe other students participating in, or folks in the community can do that. And that was your, on page 4, that was the third highest of the things that the students were talking about there. So,
and I will say, we've had great success kind of working with the 3 principals, with Mr. Mounts, Mr. Howard, and Mr. Boland, on different programs and initiatives. And I know that they, I think they have some ideas internally to work on some things within the schools. A lot of the student proposed solutions were things that wouldn't require funding, more like, having a student advisory, or having different after-school programs and mentor programs with volunteers. And so I think continuing on that collaboration is something that we're interested in, as well as providing the actual funding.
Yeah, I think this is really a valuable document because we're hearing from the students themselves about what the problems are. So I think there's a lot of insight there. They've come up with a lot of stuff that, is not expensive to implement. Yeah. I mean, one thing that jumps off the table to me, it's item number 10 on the top 10 list. It's not the highest, but something that would be really simple and not really, and probably have high yield and not be very resource intensive would be homeroom or free period just to talk about issues, even if only once per 9 weeks. And at College of Medicine, we do that pretty frequently. We have at least, per 8 week, 7 to 8 week block, we have at least one session, one 1 hour session where it's just debriefing and talking about things that are going on, what's stressing you out, and that sort of thing. So, and we know that if we're getting feedback on certain things, we need to change those programs. So and that's a two-way street, and that's very helpful for all of us. So, and I mean, that's something that 1 hour every semester, every quarter is not a ton of time or resource, but that's something that could have a pretty big impact on us.
Mr. Rawani, Mr. Neal?
And other than to say that we feel like the board and the school officials are probably the best position to decide how to use these resources, but that we're here on an ongoing basis in year 1 and through year 5 to try to make some funds available. The whole idea behind the roundtables was to get the conversation started, get people talking about it. It's really been impressive to see how the youth of Clark County have taken to this. there's a lot of bright students in the Clark County Public School System, and they participated, and they were interested in it, and I think they have given us a lot of tools to consider here. So when you take some resources like we're talking about, I think it's, what we talked about, $125,000 over a 5-year period, that's not, that's not a modest amount of money to apply towards safe. The most important thing I think we can do besides educate our children, which is keep them safe. And so it's been a pleasure really to have this, to be active in this process, and I think that going forward, once we get some direction from the school system, from you, from the officials, I think we're prepared to either just write checks or help out with any implementation that might be necessary. So that's kind of where we are. We would like to get this out to the community just so that people can see what we've come up with and what the students of Clark County come up with.
Thank you. Mr. Neely, any?
You said it all.
Okay. So it seems like where we would go to with this is, we appreciate the report. You all are going to be distributing it now, going down that path. And so the ball's in our court to specifically come up with some prioritized expending of $50,000 in year 1 and $25,000 in years 2 through 6. Do I understand that correctly? So that's something I think probably is appropriate for us to, as my friend Mr. Ball would say, cogitate on, and then perhaps bring that up at the next meeting. If you will not be at the next meeting, Dr. Kudak, if you wanted to then share that via email perhaps with the superintendent as to what you think the priorities are, and that way we can have, we can make sure we're reflecting your thoughts on it also.
Okay.
Does that seem like a pretty reasonable approach on this, Mr.
Sounds
Perino?
good. I do think we need to make sure we do keep building administrators involved in the whole process of doing this. I think, it was hit on the head very well about what are you going to do for students. I mean, we can put in all the locks, all the film on the windows and everything, and all that's really good, but that student really doesn't see that. And I mean, I think really initially we need to make sure that there's something that goes in that you can look at that student and say, this is what you got done for that. I mean, if you see the film on the window, that's great, and hopefully that never ever comes into play anywhere. Hopefully nobody ever hits the Rhino door locking system. But it would be great if there was something that we had in there for that student to say, this is what your community did for you, and that helps give them that connection to the community. I think it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think school safety and school violence is something that can be fixed by fixing your system, right? In the hospital, we're always looking at somebody, you don't go in and you say, I'm gonna commit a medical error today. You don't say that, right? So in some way, the system generally fails you and then something else happens. But I don't think, school safety is something where, you can get the system as safe as possible, but things may still happen because of a lot of human issues with that. So, and some of the stuff that the kids are being brought up, bullying, fighting is number 1, drugs are number 2, racism is number 3, pretty consistently across the board. I mean, those are solutions that we're not going to be able to fix on our own. We need help with the community. So I think the solutions for those 3, they need to involve the community, because some kids take some of the problems that are in community and take them to school. So.
But for right now, it seems like on our task list is they've offered for some funding, is to see if perhaps we can be thinking about that before the next meeting, at the next meeting, then talk about it. And certainly we want the input of your cabinet that you just shared with us, and go ahead and try to come up with a list so we can move forward on that, because we don't want to dilly-dally too long and miss out on that opportunity, because we certainly want to do everything we can do to make the Clark County school system as safe as possible. And your all's interest in the school district and involvement in the community is just fantastic. And we can't say enough good things about it and express our appreciation of. So thank you very much, and look forward to getting that report out there. And hopefully you all will get a lot of kudos from that too, because it was great that you all did that this spring. All righty. Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming.
So are we tabling part of this item to another meeting, or are we?
I think we can. Do we need to vote to accept the report?
Vote to accept the report?
Well, let's see here, see what the wording is on it. Yeah, this says that we could discuss and consider approval of the initiatives.
I think a reasonable thing we could do, I believe we can all agree on, is to approve the report and express our support for it.
We're not really approving the initiatives that are on here. That's still left up in there, right? So we're just basically.
Approve the wording of the report and express our, our appreciation for that. Or maybe we should say that we would support the wording of the report as written and show our appreciation for what the foundation has done. It's like a reasonable way to look at it.
That's a motion, I'll second it.
Mrs. Nance will shoot me if I don't restate that.
Yes, she will.
She wouldn't, like with a rubber bullet or a paper wad or something on the rubber band. All right, well, let me give that an attempt then, and you all just jump in to fine tune this. So my motion is to express our board's support for the on-the-table report has been presented for our review, and to express our appreciation to the Clark County Community Foundation for their work in conducting the forums in the spring and developing this report.
I'll second that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Peridot, any tweaks, improvements?
I think we're all right. I think that'll cover it.
All right. Second motion. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 3-0. All right, item number 9. Consider approval for adding 2 new district school-wide resource officers. This is not a trivial amount of money. I think it probably is certainly worthy of discussion of the full board. Do you all want to hear a presentation on it and be able to give some input at this point in time? What are your all's thoughts on this particular item?
I would think in any of these, if there's a board member that's not comfortable voting on it tonight, they should just go ahead and make the motion to table it, and then that pretty much tells us what we need to do.
Okay. I'd like to make the motion to table item number 9 then.
Okay, I'll second.
So I made the motion to table it. Dr. Kudak has seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor of tabling this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 3-0. That passes. Item number 10, consider approval to purchase vehicles for school resource officers not to exceed $50,000. Again, this is a pretty substantial amount of money, and from my perspective, I think that I'd certainly like the full board to have an opportunity to review this. I've got some concerns about this myself, so I'd like to make a motion to table this item also.
Second. You can second.
All right. So that was my motion, and second by Mr. Peridot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion to table passes 3-0. Item number 11, consider approval of proposed safety security project list not to exceed $75,000. On this particular item, I think there's quite a number of items on here that the way that it is written, it says to not to exceed $75,000. There are, I don't know, maybe 10 different items on here. I think it would be reasonable that we might be able to evaluate some of them might be of a more critical nature that we could peel from this list and get a 3-0 vote on. Do you all have thoughts that we might be able to get consensus on some of these items?
Is there anything in particular that you didn't?
Yeah, I looked at the list. I didn't see anything that
everything
jumped
looked like
off.
to me that
Everything looked
Just
pretty
the
reasonable.
one, I think you all got a copy of an email that I sent out. I think I sent it to everybody. I should have the PA system at Campbell. It's my biggest concern. You've got a wing of the building that has no PA. We can no longer get the cards for that to upgrade it.
I think where we are on it, we're going to take it from the other direction, is see which items we think we can't agree upon. So let's just wander around on this if we could, and everybody feel free to jump in no particular order. On the PA system, that's $20,600. Was that bid out, or is this off the state list, or how do we know that's the best deal for our taxpayers?
Well, this is the company that provides our local PA systems pretty consistently. And
State bid list.
and they are on the state bid list. That's correct. And we've done a great deal of business with these folks throughout our schools. They provided systems in several of our other schools, and pretty reputable company. And that's, I think, a pretty fair estimate as to what a system of this nature would cost. And I would say that that is a high priority area for us as well, because of the lack of ability of the school to communicate to the lower R wing of that school any emergent situations. They just can't hear anything with the current system that's in place, and it's antiquated, parts aren't available, and I think we are in an emergent situation with that particular system regarding school safety and student safety.
All right. On the ATC server, you all have borrowed one from the gym. Were you all able to determine through any source how much that costs?
I was not at this point, but I can get back with you on that. I think there's folks that are still looking into that.
Yeah, and that server, as I understood, that server was, where it is now, it's able to handle the ATC cameras, and will be able to, it's not going to handle all ACT.
No, the server was designed.
ATC.
We changed the system. We have several cameras that record 24/7 due to motion. They're too far away. We can't record everything. So we're sending a lot of information across the system. So when they put the ATC, or the athletic complex out to bid, we met with Sonatrol, told them we knew we had a problem, how can we fix it? So they designed that server big enough to handle all the athletic complex and offload some of the ATC cameras. Now, what that's affecting right now, it's not big enough to run the full system. So 8:50 in the morning when everybody hits the hallways, that particular server will jam up and it'll blink out. The PTZ in the back parking lot, we can't control it. We can leave it on a fixed function, but if we try to move it across the parking lot the way we're running right now, it's not working. So what we done when our old server went down, we put all the RAM and the hard drive out. They sent it off to Dell and said, this is the cameras that we're running, this is how many cameras, this is what they're doing. They expect the new server to hold all of our video for 30 days, and they actually increased to a 4 megapixel camera to where we're running a 1.3 right now. So it should hold a lot more data than what we have.
Is your all's plan, if we move forward on this, will you all redeploy this one to the ATC and free up the one that you're all borrowing right now from the gym?
It's actually, the one at the gym is still gonna stay in the ATC side. They're gonna leave it housed there, and they'll just actually, when they pull in their new cameras, that's where they will terminate that from the gym.
So what I think you just said, if I understood it correctly, is instead of saying, well, let's put off this purchase for 6 months until we're closer to really needing it, did you say we need to go ahead and move forward on this?
Yes, like Mr. Bowen had an issue, I think yesterday, he was watching cameras, he's got an exterior view in hallways. When all the kids hit the hallways, he's got certain cameras that'll just blank out. When they get all the motion and all the kids going, that server will just blank out. And we have had 2 issues here in the past month that we've needed video, and they've blacked out during that video time.
And, his entire systems now are 7 years old, six years old?
And
Approaching
one
7
issue-
years old?
One issue with the system at the high school, it was a hybrid system. When it was put in, we was on the very first school to have all IP cameras. So we have analog cameras, we have IPs. Well, technology has changed so much in 7 years. If he has a camera that goes out, I can't buy that same camera he had, so I have to upgrade it to a better camera. But then that puts more load on our system, so that's why we're having server issues as well. And that's why they've spec'd the new server to have more RAM and more hard drive to handle all the data.
And Mr. Christie, no doubt you've been involved with this process and on each one of these items and know about it more in depth than we could just by reading the packet. You fully support all of these items?
Yes.
And Mr. Stump, you also?
Absolutely, and 3 in particular.
Okay. Well, do y'all feel like, do you have any concerns about any of the items, or we're in pretty good shape to give it a try to approve this.
I think we're good.
Okay, do y'all have any
I
further
think some of
questions?
these really are, these are urgent because some of these are big safety issues, PA, fire system.
Absolutely, the fire system's concerned.
We have,
If there's any high school students watching tonight, they'll know where they can and can't do things, right?
They're probably all studying, all right, they're
I would hope so, but, so, anyway. These are, I think these are significant safety issues, so.
Mr. Peridot, your thoughts, sir?
I'm ready.
All right. I would entertain a motion then on item number 11.
Move to approve proposed safety security project list not to exceed $75,083.10.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Peridot, second by Dr. Kudak. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 3-0. Thank you for your all's work on continuing to make our school system safer.
Thank you for the funding.
Number 12, the greenhouse project proposal. I think certainly one of our members has a bit of a background that they might be able to give a little bit more thoughts on it. It's kind of outside of my wheelhouse. I would like to table this one unless you all feel very strongly that you want to move forward with a vote.
I just actually wanted a little bit more information. Who's going to be in charge of the greenhouse?
I'll defer that to our two principals. Where'd Dustin go?
So I think what we'll do is instead of tabling it then we'll just go ahead and jump into the item.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we don't have the support to table it, so we're going to jump into this item. Just make sure we get everything
I'll certainly let
correct.
Mr. Bowen represent the program he's proposing, but it's my understanding it's a partnership between the two schools and the greenhouse programs, and I'm sure he can describe that a lot in more detail than I'd be able to at this point.
I guess earlier in the year, I guess it was this year, we came to you last year and proposed the change order that was approved to where we filled in the drainage, I guess what I would call a drainage ditch out there, as an area that we were able to reclaim and actually is going to fit into this project. But we are right now, I think Ms. Pigg and Ms. Lansdale are running our greenhouse. And I think Becky is gone, but they've been running anywhere from around 300 to 400 I think it's iceberg lettuce heads we're growing that they sell at a really cheap rate to the food service. It goes into food service. We provide that for food service. Right now, we're doing, I was going to bring you some, but we've had some issues with water, so our cucumber plants died. But instead of coming forward tonight with pieces of metal, I was going to bring you some cucumber. But they're also growing cucumbers in the greenhouse that will also be going into food service. But what we have is a couple of years, I think it was last year, maybe year before last, Kentucky State had approached us about doing, and I may say this incorrectly, I get it mixed up, I think it's aquaponics, where we'll be growing the fish. They're willing to partner with us. And our greenhouse is almost getting to capacity. So what we're wanting to try to do, and I think I went back and researched, in 1999 was when the current greenhouse that's at RDC was built. Couldn't really find a lot of information about anything that's actually ever been done to upgrade it. A lot of those, I'll say for lack of a better term, the plastic panels have cracked, have holes in them. That's the biggest part of this proposal, is actually to resheet, recover that greenhouse. It's also to add an irrigation system. It's what we have, that if you come in our greenhouse right now, you'll see like little mini water hoses that come down. They go into the plants, so everything is automated. It waters it based on the soil temperature, or the soil. So those are the two biggest components. The other parts of this was actually, we're going to be partnering at GRC with the Extension Office and doing plasticulture.
Okay.
All kinds of terminology here. But basically, we're going to have, I think they're planning, it's 150 heads of cauliflower and 150 heads of broccoli. Students will be growing outside. That starts in February on the grounds. But I think the big idea behind this with me and Mr. Howard is really to get that greenhouse going back up. They're going to pick up, that's where the KSU project will be with the fish. They're also they're going to go into the strawberries production. But it's really to give, I think, the kids an experience. And, I'm from Eastern Kentucky, but there's a company called App Harvest. You can Google it, APP Harvest. they've come out and I got part of the, trying to stimulate the economy in eastern Kentucky, but they're proposing and have actually gotten the state subsidies, tax incentives to create what I think is coined as probably one of the largest greenhouses east of the Mississippi River. We've put on a reclaimed strip mine. In partnership with that, the University of Pikeville has created what they're calling high-tech ag. And I think this kind of really falls in those pathways. I think it gives kids an opportunity because we've got a lot of kids that are interested in this. Right now, we've been working with Ms. Bonfield at Concrete. If you remember her planter boxes and her stuff, our kids go out there and do that. And I know it looks like a lot of money. The biggest bulk of it is to rehab that greenhouse, and the rest of it is basically to kind of get us started where they can be self-sufficient. Because right now, the FFA has been bearing the burden, and I don't think that's fair to them.
We have motors out on blowers and control panels that need to be upgraded and replaced. It's really, as Mr. Boland has stated, it's really investing in the refurb of that greenhouse at Campbell. And, startup seedlings that they've requested the board fund initially. Some of the questions that I entertained today, in fact, from Mrs. Hicks was who funds the utilities on the facilities, and we do. It's a maintenance budgeted occurrence, but the schools.
We're so energy efficient, all of our schools, that's not a problem, right?
All right. Well, the schools work will make that greenhouse more energy efficient too, when you go back in and replace panels.
That's right, it will.
That's
right.
Make
When
it
you
more
replace the
efficient.
panels and controls and blowers, I mean, you're really gonna create a more efficient, energy efficient environment that has been working year round for the last several years in both programs. We've been running through the winters as well at GRC and both at Campbell for the last several years. So we're certainly willing to contribute our part to support this program. Working with EKU on strawberries and things of that. I mean, it just sounds like providing food to our own food service department. It's just great for kids.
The one thing in there, I won't mention the vendors, they're in actually talks right now with one of the major stores here in town to supply them with their vegetable plants this spring. And I think that's pretty much, it's a given, it's going to happen. It's just not been announced yet. So, but when you look at some of this stuff right here, we're actually, since I have been there, I think we've always bought stuff in the greenhouse. I don't call them seedlings, but we've always bought small plants. This year, they're already being sowed now. They're raising them. Everything is coming from the seed, which is going to be, it's pretty neat.
Okay.
So.
And to address your question, Mr. Peridot, it's, I'll quote Mr. Howard that the goal is to be to run the programs as a nonprofit business, so that they would monitor the revenues and expenses and become self-sufficient after the initial startup investment from the board.
I'm in support of any kind of horticulture you can do, but once you start to get into aquaponics, I just want to make sure you all had some technical support, because the other thing is when you're starting to increase your production, your fungus problems get worse, your bug problems get worse, and you're going to need some resources for people to talk to that do a lot of greenhouse work. So it's a lot different growing stuff in the greenhouse versus outside the ground. So.
Now, this is completely out of my wheelhouse. I was confused by the presentation. Is all of the investment going to be at Campbell, or is some of it going to be at GRC?
The hard investment, we'll say, or for the actual greenhouse equipment and all that will be at Campbell, not at GRC.
Okay, because it had some ship-to addresses of GRC.
Well, what
so
we've
that's where I got
done, I think this is
confused.
some stuff that we've been working on for some time to get in front of the board, but basically, FFA, as I said, has been bearing the burden. So there's some things that has been ordered through there that we were hoping to be able to kind of recoup or help FFA with, to help us get that seed money to get started. Because right now we're encumbering negatives.
But this equipment will all go to Campbell?
Yes, all the equipment goes to Campbell. There might be a blower motor maybe that does. I think there's a couple blower motors in that. One of the motors may come to GRC. The rest, everything else is Campbell.
The panels and the benches and
Campbell.
And some of the things that some of the needs that GRC has, we've been addressing through our maintenance department, water repairs and things of that nature. The board previously invested in an irrigation system at GRC that's significantly upgraded that program.
He has three. I guess he's running half the day ag, and the other half is with me. So we've actually got 4 ag teachers this year in the district. So I think his plan is hopefully to move it to a full-time position in the future.
In general, an average utility cost for a greenhouse of those sizes is roughly $5,000 to $6,000 a year if you run them manually.
What do you all think? You all feel strongly to go ahead and move on this, or shall we wait and include the full board on it at a future meeting?
I'm fine with that. I think the prices are reasonable, so. Wasn't sure of the breakdown between what was going to GRC, what was going to Campbell. Campbell Greenhouse is in pretty bad shape. It needs this amount of work, and I think the overall quote's pretty reasonable for it.
But it allows us to, well, they're gonna work in tandem, so, together, it's not just.
Farm Tech is good. I've ordered for them before, so.
It's gonna be a great community project if we start supplying places here in town as well.
Yeah.
That'll be a
big plus.
big plus for the school system.
Do you think any of the two members that we don't have with us,
Did you knock them dead, Mr. Elkins?
Well, I don't know if I go that far.
do you think of the two members that are not with us, would be disappointed if we conducted the vote now without them?
Only if it didn't pass. I'm just saying again, if you don't think you're gonna vote for it, vote to table. I mean, that's just the way I look at it.
All right, well, I'd like to entertain a motion on this item, if you all don't have any further questions then.
I'll make a motion to consider approval of the Campbell GRC Greenhouse Project proposal not to exceed $30,000.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Peridot. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then motion passes 3-0.
You did say 30,000, right?
30,000. 30, comma
3-0,
0,
yeah, comma 000, yeah.
I heard 3. My ears.
Then items 13, 14, 15, and 16, those all look to me to be consider approval of pay applications. What's your all sense? Are there any concerns in any of those, or can we just tie into those in? Okay, were there any we'll just take 13, item number 13 on the agenda. Were there any questions that we had on that? Of course, all of these items are in our packet for our review since last week, and of course for the community's review also.
I think Roland would like to get paid, so I'm fine with that.
So if there's no questions on item 13, then a motion would be in order then.
I'll move to approve pay application 14-22 to Ross Tarrant for the GRC High School Gymnasium Athletic Fields Project in the amount of $9,263.46.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Peridot. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 3-0. Item 14, consider approval of pay application number 1829-05 to Ross Tarrant Architects for the GRC High School Field House and Athletic Phase 3 project, the amount of $124,333.29. Any questions on this item?
I'll move to approve pay application 1829-05 to Ross Tarrant for the GRC High School Field House and Athletic Phase 3 project in the amount of $124,333.29.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Peridot. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes 3-0. Item 15, consider approval of pay application number 10 to Codell Construction Contractors and Suppliers for the GRC High School Gymnasium Athletic Fields Project, total amount of $1,109,107.38. You know, just for fun, we might want to talk about this.
I was going to say, I was going to pause for a minute because we had some stuff in our packet about progress, and so any comments? The light stanchions went up, and my wife has had a coronary about that. So it was like, I'm hoping Ross Tarrant
They're LED as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping the lights are down and not forward. So
Yeah, well, yeah, they're.
I'm looking
quite
at my
impressive.
tree line, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to trim? What am I going to take down? There's some trees I'm leaving up.
I think the ones facing your house are only 80 feet as opposed to the others on the other side of the field are over 100 feet. So that might be some kind of.
All the ones facing his house are over.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Those are the 100 feet line, 100-foot pole lights.
Maybe y'all shouldn't even mention that at all.
Yeah. Well, John, would you like to address that, or you want me to kind of go over some things? Are you asking for a?
Yeah, just a quick project.
I think for $1 million, we ought to hear just a little bit more about it.
Okay.
Of course, this report you're getting is several weeks old, but things are really progressing out there. As you can see, it's $1 million month right there. The concrete roof decks on the stadium buildings, got 4 of those pictures that we're in Roland's report there with all the reshoring of those roof decks. All that has now since been removed. Masonry's underway in the interior of the stadium buildings. Split face block has been delivered. It's underway now as well for the exterior skin of those buildings. And we have the spray foam insulator will be here Thursday or Friday. I haven't checked my email to see which day he's coming, but all that will be proceeding into this week. On the stadium side, that's some of the trusses getting set right there. We've since set several more. I believe there's one left set as we stand today, so it's really been rolling pretty well out there.
How are we on the gym? I've been leaving for work at dark, so I'm coming home at dark too.
You got one main truck, you got one main truck.
Trying to get the roof deck on.
Okay, so it's not quite sealed in yet.
No,
Okay.
no, quite a bit of work left to do there.
Okay.
Fireproofing and steel.
Walls are pretty far up. I noticed that. So.
I know in the 22-page report that Ross Tarrant did, there was some notation about rock and things like that. Those are just sort of normal things, just spot deficiencies, and that way you can pass along to contractors and they can address all those.
Yeah, those are a great tool. We appreciate getting those. That gives us something to actually use as a tool with the contractors. So, hey, here's a deficiency they found. I think in particular you're talking about the rock over on the baseball, softball field. So yeah, as you see there, that's still has to be drugged to remove all that out of topsoil. So that will be taken place.
For final grading, yeah.
On the west end of the track, there's a lot of water that's pooling there. Is that something that's still on the punch list to address? So,
Yeah, it's probably that the storm sewer has not been activated yet, but they usually keep erosion control on top of the storm sewers to keep them from getting mucked up with mud and dirt and stuff, just to keep them clean. And when they get a little further along, they'll probably uncover that erosion control once that storm sewer gets hooked up to where its destination is, and we get some erosion control measures in, like some standing grass, or get the artificial turf on the field, and get some of the finishes on there. So
I think in that particular case, the final grade is not yet determined, so that storm structure is actually higher than the grade elevations. That water is not able to get into that storm structure just yet. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
so contractors are all performing well.
54 days. We've lost 54 days, I think, in total.
That's the last month. I have to double check what we've lost since then.
We'll probably be coming to the board next month with a list of change orders for time changes for all contractors.
Speaking of change orders, is there any preview of coming attractions of anything that's come up that we need to start thinking about, so we're not quite so surprised, and that's not a days related?
Well, one, we have the architects working on with regard to the grade of the hill next to the visitor bleachers. So we think it's rather steep for mowing. So we're looking at some options as to how we might be able to address that hillside next to those visitor bleachers, so it's more accommodable to maintenance and upkeep. Possibly some rock structure or some landscaping or something along that hillside to prevent mowers from having to. The grade is
it's a 2-to-1 slope, and so the slope it's a little steep for a lawnmower to go up. And it's on either side of the visitor bleachers, and where the visitor bleachers are. If you're kind of on the home side and you're looking across the field at the visitor bleachers, on either side of that, there's 2 slopes that go off to the side. Now, where those visitor bleachers are placed, there's a lot of rock, and so it's going to be very expensive to remove the rock to lay that hill back even more. So we kept it a little steep, but it will be. You're not going to be able to put a mower on it. And there's just some. We're looking at some maintenance options that might provide some ease of maintenance on behalf of the district. Maybe some landscape options. We'll be looking at those Thursday. I've got some examples for Donald to look at the progress meeting Thursday. So.
And that would be coming in the form of a change order.
Yeah.
So you all didn't have the meeting last week. You're going to have it.
It's going to be
this Thursday.
This Thursday, yes, sir.
Do you all have any questions, concerns? All right. You all want, I'm sorry, do you want to commit publicly to any of the targeted move-in dates yet, or still put that off waiting what Old Man Winter brings to us?
I heard football in July.
What, you didn't, did you hear what year?
Not this one.
Okay. I'm sorry, Dr. Kudak.
I was going to move to approve pay application number 10 to Codell Construction with GRC High School Gymnasium Athletic Fields Project in a total amount of $1,109,107.38.
Second.
All right, motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Peridot. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 3-0. Appreciate your all's efforts. Keep at it. Looking great. Item number 16, consider approval of pay application number 16 to Performance Services Incorporated for Guaranteed Energy Conservation Service Savings Project BG 17-178, the amount of $378,311.05. No doubt, Mr. Stump, you looked through all the items that make this up in terms of the progress that they're claiming that works its way down to this application. You feel comfortable?
Absolutely. And I think the PSI is informing me that they're still expecting the contract to be concluded sometime around Christmas in December. We're working on punch lists as we speak.
Okay. Mr. Christie, are you happy with what's going on, what they've done so far? Do you all have any questions on this item? Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to approve pay application number 16 to Performance Services Incorporated for Guaranteed Energy Conservation Savings Project BG 17-178 in the amount of $378,311.05.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion by myself, second by Dr. Kudak. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes 3-0. The air conditioning systems proposal, is this an emergent need that we could push to next week? Okay. Do you have questions about that, Dr. Kudak, or you're not going to be here with us next week? Considering it's not emergent, I'd like to go ahead and then table that to next week.
I'll second your motion to table.
Okay, motion to table by myself, second by Dr. Kudak. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion is tabled to a future meeting. Item number 18, consider approval to authorize superintendent to advertise for bids for the George Rogers Clark High School Fieldhouse and Athletics Phase 3 project BG 16-334 pending KDE approval of construction documents.
We have received KDE's approval of construction documents, so it's ready to go to bid.
If we approve this today, when's bid day going to be?
30 days from when it hits the paper, and we'll try to get in the paper the next day or two.
So, we had the construction documents, they're sitting over there. There's no changes to those. They went to KDE. KDE said they're fine and dandy. I believe those documents were approved on a 5-0 vote. Does that sound correct?
If we wait another week, the price is going to double. No.
Steel will go up.
Yeah.
Do you all?
There'll be 55 more tariffs we have to deal with. So,
that could happen. Do you gentlemen have any concerns about trying to move forward on this? It seems like we've approved it. This is the logical next step. We'll send it out there and see what the market has to say.
I think time is of the essence here. So.
Yeah, we might be able to get something done before winter sets in, even if we're efficient.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion on that then.
Move to authorize superintendent to advertise for bids for the GRC Fieldhouse and Athletics Phase 3 project BG 16-334.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Peridot, second by Dr. Kudak. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 3-0. Item number 19, consider approval of allocation of junior achievement in the amount of $2,500. My name has been put on this, but quite frankly, I don't know a lot about it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for your efforts. It's looking great out there. Mr. Christie,
we do this each year.
So in terms of the involvement the junior achievement has with the school, you're still happy with that?
Yes.
You're good with it, this is an item that you would support then?
We had some extended discussion about this a couple of years ago, and JA actually brought us a lot of stuff that they did.
Yeah.
You know, they're responsible for a lot of some business education and those sorts of things, so. But because this is one thing we just approved every year, and 1 year we were like, hey, we want to see a little more about it, but I think we think it's a worthwhile thing, so.
Okay.
So I'll move to allocate to junior achievement an amount of $2,500.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Faridow. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Item number 20 is an item that I added to the agenda just so we can crack open the concept. I don't expect it to go very far tonight, but since we can't really, because of open meeting laws, we have to discuss things in an open forum. I wanted to at least throw it out there. And this item, it says, discuss, consider approval of the establishment of the safety task force. From my perspective, I just wanted to get the idea out there so we can again be cogitating on it. I know that other districts, for example, districts in Western Kentucky, there's a Western Kentucky School Safety Task Force that have quite a number of key people from the community that are on this task force for that school system. Simpson County has a task force. And I believe there's at least one other county out there, and typically what comprises this, and this certainly doesn't have to be ours, and it could be we decided we don't even need a task force like this, is to have representatives from the school system, representatives from the police department, sheriff's department, city and county, and they might, work together on a monthly basis or something like that, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. To make sure the communication's going on, to see if there's, just an avenue to get all of those interested parties together to see if there's any additional avenues that we ought to be looking at, and for no other reason, just to optimize communication among that. I don't want to propose that at this point in time in terms of a motion. I wanted to get the concept out there so we can be thinking about it some more, because it's certainly too important to not do on a very thorough basis. But I wanted to have the idea out there so we can be thinking about it. Do you all have any concerns or anything to share on the concept?
The concept's okay, but I think it's something we've kind of been doing all along, so, I mean,
Yeah.
school safety has been a conversation.
And after having this
For a long
conversation,
time,
I
this was
thought
right.
also something else that's already in place that we utilize monthly is the local DES meeting that we have, where every one of these agencies that you're talking about, we meet once a month already, so that's something, and at any time, and we give reports, we report to them every month about goings on in the schools, and that's a group that's already assembled that I guarantee you that if we wanted to say, let's take one of our meetings and let's devote it to school, safety plans, what's each person, we can, that's an avenue that we can probably go with a group that's already together.
Okay.
There's no hesitation to convene extra meetings in case some things come up. I remember when we opened schools and closed schools, there were a slew of meetings related to that. All these stakeholders were there, so. I actually think lines of communication between the school district and the emergency services in this town are excellent, so both city and county. So one thing this might be helpful for would be, though, I think there might be another avenue or way for students and or parents to communicate with us, so I think there would be some value to that. So if you had a task force that was more, just in line with what the Community Foundation, Clark County Community Foundation offered before, to have that sort of dialogue that they had in the spring be ongoing in some way. I think that sort of safety task force would be more helpful than something where we need to sit down with police, fire, and.
So make sure I understand what you all are saying. You think in terms of the key players that I described very briefly, there's probably something similar to that already going on. And if we thought it would be useful to also try to bring in a broader group of members of the public, that's something at least we can consider. And I'm not saying we should do it, but that's something that your all's thoughts are that we're already doing a lot of the communication right now.
That would be my thought. So,
Mr. Perrineau?
I think that our people, as Dr. Kudak said, involved in safety have been pretty proactive with the things that they've done to to work with the school system and talking to Mr. Christie and some of the other people. They went out there and done that. There may be, as Dr. Kudak said, an avenue with parents and students on, maybe that could be even a site-based type of committee or something that they have there on that local level to get more input that way. But I think on the whole level, I've been pretty pleased with what our emergency people have done.
Okay. All right, that's all I really wanted to at least kick the idea around. Item number 21 is discuss status of community education program. I put this on here. I've, as a board member, received a lot of questions as to what the status is, and since again we have to talk about things in open session, I wanted to throw that out there so you can maybe update us on your thoughts to the extent that you're able to.
I'm just kind of, in the conversation we've had, waiting for some direction on how do you want to proceed with this program? Do you want it to go under the route that it did when Ms. Hefner was here? My recommendation would be to we get $20,000 annually for community education. Anything above that, the board has paid. My recommendation would be to take that $20,000 to add to a salary to tie to a position that may be already created even outside of the district, just like the Partners in Education. I think that's a place that this community ed would fit in. Combine it with the salary, I'm not sure it's not a large salary that they're getting for that part. This could add to that person's salary, and I think they would be one that would, after the years of experience with the Partners in Education, seeing it grow the way it is, I think they would be capable of taking this on and continuing the program at the level where we need to be.
A collaboration. We would do sort of a portion of an employee. I don't know what that number might be. They would provide some funding, and then
we would provide some. And because the $20,000 that we get has to go towards salary, we can't use it for anything else. Now, there are other things that it's generated, the city puts in some, so they have an operating budget within the community ed. The city or the county puts in, and then the board always puts in each year. And then they have that good giving match. I think there's a time that any money is donated to them, they match it. So that's the operational side. That kind of sustains the operation side of it. The $20,000 then is allowed for salaries.
Mrs. Ryan, would something like that work, that we would provide a certain amount of funding for a portion of a person? I don't know if you've kicked around this idea or not, but is it workable from an HR standpoint? Ms. Ellis? What do you all think? You all want to discuss this more at this point in time, or defer this to a full meeting to get everyone's thoughts on it?
I kind of like the avenue Mr. Christie's going. Would like to see probably a more formal presentation of it. This is what we think, how this would do.
We would need to kind of redo the job description and
feedback from PI as well on what they think about putting all this together. But they're a good organization, but don't want to fill the plate up to where they can do something. But this may be good for them.
Well, I know, since I'm on the PI's board, that they've got their current funding model and the expenses they have is not sustainable. So this would really help out to further that program, its longevity in the community. So it might be one of those classic win-wins. So if I'm summarizing this correctly, it seemed like a pretty reasonable idea to continue to go down that path and flesh that out a little bit more. Is that fairly reasonable? Okay.
We'll do that as quickly as we can.
Okay. All right. Any more on item number 21? All right. Now we move on to the consent agenda items. We then typically pull out item number 40 to handle separately. Items number 22 through 39. Do you all have questions on those items that you all would like to have answered, or pull out anything individually?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Ms. Bush answered all my questions under item 5. Thank you.
I know I did have one question for it. Mrs. Ellis?
I'm sorry, I was.
No worries.
Something. What was the question?
On the consent items, I know included in that packet are were signed agreements for several of the boosters organizations, but I think there's still some that are outstanding. Is there a certain time limit we want to give them before we have to have Mr. Elkins send them a nasty letter?
We request monthly. I mean, we can constantly request them. I don't know, that's the board's purview to put a deadline on that. I mean, a booster agreement is August 1st, but with discussion in the last booster meeting that we had, some of the groups haven't even formed at that point. They're new officers for the new school year. But essentially, in my opinion, and I'm sure Athletic Director Mr. Boland, they should have all that. He's by October 1st at the latest, because at that point they've all formed, or should have.
I think the outstanding, there's some pretty big groups in there too.
Yeah, there is. We were informed, we did have contact from the football boosters. They will be turning that in later this week, for sure. They got in contact with us after being contacted once again. So we should have that one shortly, but we have not heard from the other groups.
How are you going to want to handle this? Do you want to ask Mr. Elkins to send perhaps a friendly letter to them?
I was thinking we talked about this one time. Well, I thought we put it there.
Well, I don't know what our policy says.
We do have a deadline, but.
It's passed.
But,
Yeah, it's passed.
and the deadline that we have, it doesn't really work with their officer elections, that we need to relook at that date.
So we're talking about the difference between fall sports and spring sports, winter sports. Is that, do we need to have possibly three different deadlines, or just say, you know?
I'm thinking maybe just to throw out a language thing, because another part of the agreement says within the first 30 days of operation of their group, and that could account for the groups that aren't until spring.
Right.
So essentially, when you start in operations within those first 30 days, you should be able to turn all your documents into us, because at that point, you should have formed your group, bylaws, officers.
Elected officers.
So I'm
that's what
thinking maybe
helps with that.
instead of having a hard date of August 1st or September 1st or anything like that, maybe putting that 30-day clause in there that which a lot of those groups at this point are fall groups and should have already had that information.
And we could say that startup, the startup date, we would consider the startup date when they have their officer election. We would consider that their startup date, and they would have 30 days to submit the paperwork.
But the 5 groups, football, and you said they're going to be getting those in.
Several of the groups are already in.
Boys golf, girls soccer, swim, and volleyball.
Yes, sir. And there's actually 3 PTO groups also that haven't turned in there, and that's an all-year thing. So.
Right, yeah, that should at least be by the start of school, I would think,
Yeah.
pretty close to that. With that, I just,
I suggest we bring the policy back for
right,
review.
I agree with that, and look at that, and then we probably just need to shoot a shot across the bow right there and say, well, you can't run your concession stand if you don't have
Well,
this.
we've had to do that.
That would probably get most of them. It's attention, I would think.
So in addition to bringing the policy back for further review, do we want to recommend to any, either a staff member or our attorney, to send them a letter of reminder on it?
I would just try to advise the superintendent, talk to the principal, talk to the athletic director, and say, this is what was talked about, get this in.
And if it's not in, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll give them a friendlier that this is now on the radar screen.
We had to deal with this similar thing with coaching, getting assistant coaches named and all that, and we've stepped in and said, there won't be another practice until we get this done. Nobody takes the field. And things happen pretty quick, and it'll happen just as quick when you tell, you're not gonna be selling concessions.
I know, we get fundraiser requests all the time from different parts of these groups. I mean, we could just deny those until that's done.
Yeah.
Basically.
And we've tried to not even turn them into you, like, for review, because they haven't turned all that stuff in. So we've even held them in our office and say, we're not even taking them to the board for approval until you give us the other documents.
Yeah.
Which has helped on some groups, but.
I've just charged the superintendent at this point right here, and then, as Dr. Boudet said, reviewing that policy.
Okay. Any other items off the consent agenda that y'all wanted to get further information on? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the following items 22 through 39. More specifically, item number 22, consider approval of George Rogers Park High School bass fishing team to participate in tournament at Dale Hollow Lake, November 2nd through 3rd, 2018. Item number 23, consider approval of George Rogers Clark High School bass fishing team to participate in tournament at Lake Cumberland, November 2nd through 3rd, 2018. Item number 24, consider approval of George Rogers Clark High School JROTC trip to compete in the U.S. Army Raider Nationals, November 2 through 4, 2018 in Molina, Georgia. Item 25, consider approval of Campbell Junior High Jazz Band to perform with Cincinnati Contemporary Jazz Orchestra November 15th, 2018 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Item 26, acknowledge Booster PTO Support Club Agreements 2018-2019, the ones that we have received, that is. Item number 27, school fundraiser request. Item number 28, acknowledge SBDM minutes. Item 29, acknowledge community eligibility program. Item 30, acknowledge KD accountability update items. Item number 31, approval of employee leaves of absence. Item 32, acknowledge the notice of personnel action report. Item 33, acknowledge the monthly energy report. Item 34, acknowledge the Clark County Clerk's motor vehicle tax report. Item 35, acknowledge the Clark County Sheriff's report. Item 36, acknowledge the monthly financial report. Item 37, acknowledge the general fund budget summary report. Item 38, acknowledge the contingency budget report. Item number 39, acknowledge the balance sheet report.
I'll second your motion.
Motion by myself, second by Dr. Hudak. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes 3-0. Would anyone like to authorize the payment of salaries and accounts payable?
I'll do so as written.
Second.
All righty, so that motion, item number 40, is by Mr. Peridot, second by Dr. Kudak. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Say nay. That item passes 3-0.
Who's going to adjourn this? There's no Ashley. We have to stay here all day. Got to table it.
Well, Mrs. Six is on her way. If you know, if you want to wait for her.
She's not on her way. We're just kidding.
I would never kid.
She said she went to get a computer.
Chop, chop.
Yeah, let's adjourn before she gets here.
So
I move to adjourn.
The concept that we're working on is to go try to move as many of these items to next Tuesday we can, and unfortunately you won't be with us.
That's fine.
All righty. So motion to adjourn.
Second.
He made the motion.
I made the motion.
Oh, you made the
20
motion.
seconds.
All right, the motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Mr. Peridot. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes 3-0, and we are adjourned at 8:52 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Got a lot done for meeting.